You ready to do this, Stu?
I am ready. Punch it like a single father, Chewie.
Welcome, Super Friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
That's me.
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 92, the repeat year for the Bulls.
Oh,
we release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button, and you can get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Stu, how are you tonight, my friend?
I was doing fantastic until right then. Yeah, I'm going to we're close to 100. You're like, repeat for the Bulls.
Yeah, just so you know, they also won in 93, 95, 96, and 97. Just a heads up.
I am extremely keenly aware of the 1997 win. Oh, that was the worst of all of it.
Too funny. So what's new? What's happening?
Oh, man. This is actually... I've got a lot of stuff to go over this week, my friend.
Ooh, good stuff, bad stuff, in between stuff?
All kinds of stuff.
Double stuff?
Oreos.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's kick it off right and proper with the concert. Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie. Blew my mind.
I saw you posting about it on Twitter Wednesday night.
Well, I wasn't posting on Twitter. Was I on Twitter? I don't remember.
I think so.
It was on Facebook, yeah. But anyway. So yeah, I mean, it was good. So they came a couple years ago with their first double tour, and I heard a lot of mixed feelings about that from a lot of people that went, especially Marilyn Manson, kind of not really doing much for anybody, really lazy, yada yada. So I was really just excited to go see the double tour thing, and I had front row seats. We had talked about the surprise there, which went over really well.
Right.
So just right up close and personal, they did have the general admission in front of us, but that was not that much room. So we got to see it really well. The opening act was better than we expected. Manson actually he came out strong. He did get a little lazy in the middle and was just kind of like laying down on stage. But then he picked back up and ended his set very, very well. All the songs I wanted to hear. And Rob Zombie, I'm not a huge Rob Zombie fan, but that man can put on a show. It was ridiculously crazy. I was getting into it. I went with my buddy Jen. She was getting into it. There's nothing worse than like going with somebody who's just kind of sitting there, which is kind of like the people on either side of us, front row, and they're just like, Why would you get front row?
Well, why spend the money to do that yet?
Right.
So let me ask you a question. Who was the opening band? Because I saw you tweeted
Deadly
or put on
Apples.
Facebook. Deadly Apples?
Yes, they're kind of like a metal industrial band.
Okay.
And I had never heard them before, but their stage presence was fantastic. I liked the songs that they'd played. There weren't many, but so I've been listening to them quite a bit since. There are a few songs I don't necessarily like, but for the most part, they kind of do it for me.
Cool.
Yeah, but
let me ask you this question, because I've been to a bunch of concerts, nothing super recent. Although I was driving, I saw that Ozzy was coming to town. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'd go see Ozzy, because I love me some good old Ozzy. But do you have a problem? Like you said, Marilyn Manson got lazy and was laying down. Do you have a problem with that? Because I really get upset when I see artists that just like completely just like take it easy. I mean, you figure like you're doing this big tour, unless they're like sick or something where they're kind of phoning it in.
So that's part of it. There is Manson has actually had to drop out of a couple shows. Supposedly, early speculation was that he was just like in a bad mood or something. But there's been a pretty general tone through the tour that he may not be doing so well with his health. And there was like one time he got down into right in front of the general admission people, and then he had one of the stagehands had to help him back up on stage. Definitely not looking like he's in his peak performance. But even when he was laying down, the rest of the band was still doing their thing, and it was, a lot of lights, all that kind of stuff. I was not that upset about it at all. A lot of people were, but I was still enjoying the show during that time. So it was okay. It was better when he started it and ended it, but all things considered, I feel like I got my money's worth there. So
okay.
Now, if it was like, say it was a smaller venue, like the Complex or, the Fair or whatever it was, where you're really all kind of up close and personal and there's not a lot of other things going on, yeah, I'd be mad.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like Axl Rose.
Yes.
Like Axl Rose would just like throw these like fits where he just like was like, no, I'm going to turn my back and I'm just going to, you're going to look at my back while I sing. It's like, dude.
I was at the show in Salt Lake where he walked off 3 songs into the set. That was a long time ago. Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. I'm just curious because I've seen a lot of shows back in the past, and I got a lot of respect for these bands that just go out every night and just kill it. And they're crazy, like active, and they're doing it, but it's the ones that start like taking it easy. I always start going, I don't know. Maybe I don't pay to see him again.
There's a lot of difference between what Marilyn Manson was doing here for a couple songs. I mean, he was still belting it out and stuff, but and then being completely belligerent on stage, which he has actually done in the past as well. Axl Rose is pretty notorious for that kind of stuff.
Right.
It wasn't nearly as bad as a poor concert performance might be. It was still okay.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah. But so yeah, we had a fantastic time. Loved it. Yeah. So then Friday night, I went to this poker game.
Yeah. How was that?
Well, I will say a couple things. One is that you make a very mean deep dish pizza.
Thank you very much.
That was fantastic. Even if there was no pork chop pizza. The whole reason I was going. But still, the sauce was great. The crust was great.
I would hope also, camaraderie and the poker.
No, I was going for the pork chop pizza.
I'm sorry. Can I take a moment to defend why we didn't have it?
Nope. There's
too
no
bad.
defense.
So
my podcast now.
So here's the deal. I prefer to make all the ingredients like live the day of, because it gives me a greater control over what I'm doing. I'm able to make it what I'd say a more correct way. And because we were playing on a Friday evening and I didn't have enough time to do it all live, I had to make dough ahead of time, and I had to do some of the meat ingredients ahead of time and then basically freeze them. And I ran out of time trying to get stuff thawed, and I thought I had a little more time than I did, and stuff wasn't thawing, and the pork was completely frozen still, and it just was not warming up. And I was like, nope, I got to cut my losses, because I was going to do the meat pizza I was going to make was going to be bacon, pepperoni, sausage, hamburger, and then some of the pork. And it ended up becoming just a sausage pepperoni because the Canadian bacon was still frozen, and then like only maybe the outer half had thawed all the way, and the pork was about the same. And I was like, I'm not going to like hack this meat up and have really weird lumpy pieces. So that's why we didn't have it. But that doesn't mean we still can't do it another time.
I will say also, it was interesting to have pot belly from the pot belly cooker. That's
because Chuck made some pork belly there.
Yep. So that
is really
his
good.
is officially a pot belly cooker now.
That is true.
But the second thing I will say is that you are ruthless with poker, and I honestly, no offense, but I don't like playing against people that play their hands, and you play your hand like 100%. And I was hoping you were bluffing somewhere. No bluffs there. Oh my gosh.
See, here's the thing. You're actually wrong. You're actually dead wrong. I bluff quite a bit.
You did not know anything.
However, on the few hands that I caught you, yeah, I just had the nuts. I mean, I had the hand that couldn't be beaten. But it was funny because shortly after you had left, I had intent because I was starting to get not enough callers.
Right.
People were starting to think, oh, he's only playing when he's got hands, and that hadn't been true. I pushed people out of hands earlier in the night on Stone Cold Bluffs where I have like a 3-6 offsuit, and an ace drops, and then I bet heavy, which to me looks like a very obvious move. Like, hey, I'm saying I've got the ace, and I was betting even heavier than normal, like really trying to show, hey, I've got the ace, and people were just like, nope, folding, and I was taking considerable pots. Later in the evening, I started to get no action on calls because they thought I was just doing that. So what I actually did on a hand, this was about maybe 15 minutes after you left, is I made a big bluff, and I probably put about, so we were playing, just as a heads up, we were playing we each had about $10 we started with.
Yep. And
I had more than the $10 in chips sitting in front of me. I had probably closer to about $40 in chips at that point. But I put about $7 in on a Stone Cold Bluff intentionally because they thought they had a better hand, and they did. And then I let it go all the way to the showdown, and I flipped my cards over. And they're like, what? You were bluffing? And I was like, hey, you got to try. And then after that, I started getting called all the freaking time. And so then I just waited until I'd make a little bluff here, and then I'd hammer him with the hand when I would get one.
See, that's even more ruthless, because like, I don't know, man. That was rough, but no, I had a good time. I really did have a good time. I don't ever expect to win. Actually, I do really well at poker, and what's funny is like the two really, really big pots that you won from me is I had the second best possible hand.
Yeah,
what were the odds that someone else would have the best possible hand each of those times?
I mean, if you look statistically at it, I only had about a 2% chance of having the better hand than you.
But
I just had it from the get-go, and so
yeah, well, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. Here's the thing I love about poker, and I'll jump in since we're kind of talking about this, since we're doing this together, is that I love to play and I love to hang out and just, BS and have a good time. But I also enjoy playing for the thrill of the competition. But I've seen some of my former coworkers, that were there that night, that when we first started playing together, man, they couldn't even tell you what hand beats another hand. And now that they can play, like Braden, who we were playing with, a little later in the night, he started catching cards right and left, and he was taking money. And I think he said he ended up losing only about $2 by the end of the night, where he was where he had went out once and had to rebuy, and he managed to kind of work his way back into getting everything except for $2 back. So I enjoy watching people's skill level jump up too the longer we've played.
Well, if I do that again, I'll definitely make sure I don't have plans later in the evening, and I'll bring some adult beverage of my own.
There you go.
And I was kind of a little bit of a time crunch, which kind of sucks because those plans actually fell through after I had left. So yeah. But then let's see. So I did go on a date. Let's see. So yeah,
you're glossing over that real quick there. I'm assuming it didn't go as spectacular as you would have hoped.
More to follow. So here's the problem. I've had some optimism in the past. And then suddenly something would just come. Like, I've never had a 2 week in a row. Hey, things are still going great with this person. So
you don't want to jinx it.
I don't want to jinx anything. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, how about we press pause right now and you just tell me the details, and we won't record it or anything.
Sure, we won't. No, we'll talk later. So yeah, the funny thing is the reason we didn't have time to talk before the show. The other big thing that's going on in my life. I got two more things. So the whole single fatherhood thing.
Sure.
I love Morgana, and I love hanging around her, and I love everything that's going on right now. But at the time, I did not. it's taking a little more out of me than I expected. Because I mean, I've done the single father thing before, actually, with my older daughter, and I've taken care of Mo before, but I'm trying not to just sit around and do nothing. So I'm trying to actually do things with her, and so yeah, it's just, man, I'm going to try the D&D thing. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm concerned that I'm overextending myself a little bit, and I'm trying to find some efficiencies and better ways of doing things. But it's not like it's, oh my God, it's worse than I thought. It's just, I love it, and I want to make sure I'm doing the best at it without sacrificing everything else I've got going on, because I don't have a lot going on anymore. But
you want to be an engaged father, and you want to put in the appropriate amount of time that Morgana needs. And
I also want to be an engaged person with my own hobbies, and I would like to have the opportunity to find somebody else to spend some adult time with, So, but so speaking of doing things, my real estate agent, free plug, Ryan Larson, amazing guy. He helped us when we bought our house. He's the guy, you have 90 real estate agents out of 100 sitting there just basically earning a 3% commission for simply making a phone call. This guy went the mile to get me in my house. Like everything he could do. I couldn't make an inspection. He showed up for the inspection. When we ended up closing on Thanksgiving Day, so he actually made some kind of deal or whatever to make sure that we could get the keys on Thanksgiving and get the bank signature. Like, this guy has gone above and beyond, and he annually has these parties, like usually a swimming pool or something, and he always invites us. He knew what was going on with like the divorce and everything, so he invited me and Mo. This year it was a splash pad, and just kind of like they had a taco truck there, and it was just a lot of good fun. We ended up they had a root beer chugging contest.
Okay.
First for the kids. Morgana did not do it. She knows her limits as a human being. Her father is not so intelligent, apparently. So I joined the adult one. There were 16 of us. And so we go and we chug, and between 16 of us, me and one other guy tie. Which was not really a tie. It was like whoever has their can up in the air first wins kind of thing. He was slower than I was, even though we finished at the same time. But so, for funsies, we had a tiebreaker. and so we go again. And, I don't know if you've ever chugged a full can of soda in like 3 seconds. You get this
pretty regularly with Mountain Dew in the past. Yeah.
Well, Mountain Dew's actually got lower carbonation, but
right.
So you get this bubble of air that eventually turns into a series of burps. Well, if you chug a second can of root beer before you've done that, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
I like where this is going.
so we're going for the tiebreaker. We chug, and I won. My hand was up in the air. Well, as my hand was going up in the air, one of the rules is you cannot spill any, burp any out, whatever. Right as I'm raising my hand, I can't hold the burp back, and it comes out while I'm swallowing. And the wind was perfect, and I belched out this whole mouthful of Mountain Dew that went right back all over me. The sad thing of all this is that, so there's a splash pad. Morgana was kind of sticky from all this cotton candy. We go over to the splash pad. There's an enforced like swimming suit rule and whatnot, North Salt Lake, whatever. So she gets all clean. I'm just sitting there waiting. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a shower as soon as I get home. We come home. It's getting late. Morgana needs to get a bath real quick. She gets in. She's got to call her mom. Just time escapes me. I have no time to take a shower. I'm sitting here on the podcast covered in root beer. I am a sticky, sticky man.
Look at you, taking it like the champ that you are.
So for a consolation prize for getting second place, I got to take home a case of root beer. So I can relive those golden moments.
Wow. What kind of root beer was it?
It was A&W.
Okay.
I mean, it's good,
It's a little on the sweeter side, but heavily carbonated for sure.
Ho, ho, ho. Can verify.
Wow.
So, and now I'm on the podcast. So that's almost like a full narrative from the end of last podcast to this one.
Wow. Well, So you remember about 2 weeks ago, we had Chelsea Capri on the show, and you guys were giving me a whole bunch of crap about my broke down, like hand-me-down chair that I'm sitting in.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
That freaking kills my rear end every single time I sit in it.
It kills our rear end too, buddy.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I decided to break down and I bought a chair, and I've got, you can see behind me.
Oh, I should look. Hold on.
A gaming chair.
Hey.
It's one I got off Amazon. I put it together this week, and I've been sitting in it playing some World of Warcraft for some longer kind of gaming sessions. And, it's not too shabby. It's got a lumbar little pillow and a pillow for the head so I can lean back. And
have you been doing?
I rather like it.
Have you been doing some leaning back gaming?
I have.
That's a different thing for me. Like with my old chair, it was just kind of like an upright back office chair, and so I was always kind of upright, but I was always kind of leaning forward, maybe slouching a little bit. But with this gaming chair, I can actually lean all the way back and game and not feel like I'm still fully mobile, and
right.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so I got that, which has been really nice. It's also been really good because all this last week I've had to basically sit on my rear to rest my groin.
Oh, here we go.
And so it's actually been pretty good for that as well. Which in the world of groin pulls and strains, things are getting better. I've actually been able to walk a little bit. I walked today mostly without the limp anymore. I'm still tender and sore, but the rest of my leg muscles that were on fire all last week have seemed to kind of get their act back together a little bit, which I'm rather happy about.
So you can stop taking your ice bag to the poker games?
That's right. I actually haven't used the ice bag in about a day and a half now. Let's see. Like I said, playing WoW, I've got a couple characters up around level 20 now. Just kind of, doing some questing, enjoying that. My mom moved into town. This was kind of big this weekend. She moved into town. She moved from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and they just got here. And of course, normally I would have helped unload the truck and spent all day Saturday doing that. And instead I had to go over there and kind of like limp around and, move the very, very light stuff, while everyone else kind of did the heavy work. But we went back over on Sunday, and I brought the pit barrel cooker, and I smoked up some chicken, and we made some veggies and made them dinner. And then we just kind of I could sit down and just help unbox stuff. And so we did some of that. But it's nice to have my mom in town. I've got to go hook up their internet tomorrow. They're getting some of the equipment that I recommended, so I'll help them get all set up. And then, we kind of talked about the poker and pizza night. So yeah, that's kind of been my week in a nutshell. Oh, I did schedule our D&D night, and I'm just kind of waiting to hear back from everyone. I figured out today, so I'm at this new job, a new firewall's in place. I couldn't get to Roll20 originally, and then I couldn't get to a couple other gaming websites. However, I found that if I did an indirect link to one of these websites, like let's say not the main site, but I went to one of the sister sites, I could link to the main gaming site from a sister site. So I thought, let me take a look and see if I can get to Roll20 by going to the link for the marketplace. So I used the link to the Roll20 marketplace, and that worked. And then, hey, I got full access to the entire site. So it seems like the new firewall is only blocking the landing page of these websites and not actually the whole website.
Or it's doing a URL block rather than a packet block.
Right. So anyway, today I went in and I bought the module for the campaign that we're going to run. And on my lunch break, I logged in a little bit and was trying to get a little more familiar with it and seeing how it all works. You and I may need to sit down some this week so I can, or sometime soon, to kind of get both of us on so we can do a little testing and
Labor Day.
I can find out what you see. Hey, whatever, man. I got no plans.
Yeah, I don't know. I've actually have Morgana this weekend, but yeah. So one of the deals is that the last Friday of every month. We may modify that a little bit. So I guess I kind of have to give some detail here. Damn it. I don't want to jinx anything. But anyway, so...
oh, yeah. Getting to the good stuff.
So anyway, I have Morgana currently the last Friday of the month. That's the weekend that I keep her home so that I can do some weekend stuff with her and her mom can get a break, right?
Yeah.
So this new person, she also happens to have a 7-year-old daughter. And she has her kids every other week. So with that in mind, we're actually going to be going up to Bear Lake this Saturday, and I don't know. Monday might be tricky. This weekend might be tricky. Hanging out might be a little more tricky because So anyway,
yeah. This upcoming Monday is Labor Day.
Yes, it is. Caught you by surprise, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it's that because it's also FanX the following Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm taking that Friday off.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't even know it was Labor Day until like a couple days ago. I'm just double checking once again. September 3rd. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. So a little note that I wanted to bring up. This isn't have anything really to do with how my week was and a recap, except for I laughed at this quite a lot. You remember last week when I was describing my groin pull and I said, "Hey,
yes, I remember."
Caleb Albers is his Android will click off if I say "Okay, Google." So I did that, and I was like, "Okay, Google," and I said, "Let's something groin pull, whatever," right? I got a tweet from a super friend of the show, Tyler Vidito at Two Timer Styler. He said, "Had my first podcast-induced OK Google search. Thank you, at Ford of Nerd. While driving my semi-truck, my GPS stopped directions so it could actively define what a groin was.
Oh.
It was hilarious."
I want to make inappropriate sound effects there, but I won't.
Oh man, I literally I was in tears when I read that. I started showing that tweet to coworkers and explaining what happened, and everyone got a big kick out of that. So I'm glad that Tyler enjoyed that. I'm glad that he didn't get lost and end up in a lake or something like that. But anyway.
Groin pulls have cascading effects, Spencer.
Apparently, that and my voice can trigger the Google Assistant. So,
well, there you go.
I like that. Anyway, I thought I'd share that. It was kind of a little funny thing. So, Stu, what do you say we get to the old Rebel Intelligence?
Let's give those Bothans a nice big groin pull. Wait, no.
Oh, man.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Stu, we're into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
Oh, an FCC warning. No, they don't do that anymore. Okay, well, so I love putting together Rebel Intelligence. Things that kind of happen throughout the week. But funny enough, like there's always something that kind of comes down on a Monday, and I knew I needed to wait for Monday. This week did not disappoint.
No, it did not.
Microsoft, they're launching an Xbox All Access. It's a new plan, which I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen anything like this before. But
no.
So it's an all-inclusive service called Xbox All Access. You pay for it for 2 years. It's basically console financing. So you buy an Xbox One S. You get it at the end of the 2 years. You finance it. You can only do it in the US, which is unfortunate, and you can only do it through the Microsoft Store, but still, For $22 a month over 2 years, you get an Xbox One console. You get the Xbox Game Pass included.
Right.
And you get Xbox Live Gold included.
That's a heck of a deal.
If you buy the Xbox Live Gold at a month by month and you buy the Xbox Game Pass month by month, you are going to be paying $22. It's like $21.98 for both of those at month by month. Plus you get the console. A good console even.
Yeah, I mean it's not the One X, I think, for the $22 a month.
No, you can get the One X though for they have a $35 a month plan for the One X, which is still good.
Still really, really good.
So if you're an Xbox gamer and you're already paying for the Live Gold, I mean, I don't know about the Game Pass. I've been kind of hit and miss with that, but still, if you like that, great. But if I were still playing Xbox Live Gold and I was playing most of my games on Xbox, I would run out and get this in a heartbeat. This is phenomenal.
Well, the thing I look at this is that not only is it good just for the subscription cost, because I mean, I know you can get Xbox Live Gold and like pay it like a once a year and it's a little cheaper. Mm-hmm. Or you can also do Games Pass. I think you can pay for it all in a bigger chunk. But you also get the console, and basically at that price, is if you were paying for those services monthly, it's essentially like getting the console for free after 2 years, and then you still get to keep it. It's not a subscription service where you got to turn it back in.
Right.
Like that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm really playing everything on PC these days, and I'm dealing with, making sure I don't just buy things, even though it's a phenomenal deal. I'm not going to use it, so I wouldn't do it, but anyone who is, this can't be beat. This is huge. I would go for the Xbox One X for $35 a month.
Right.
That's, you're basically paying $15 a month for the Xbox One X console. Not a bad deal. And again, you've got everything that you're going to want to play with it, so you don't actually need to buy games if you're okay with the Game Pass. The Game Pass actually is pretty good. It's got a lot of games on it. It's just nothing that I always play the Cult of the New or MMOs and stuff. So,
right. I've been looking at maybe getting an Xbox for a long time now, because I haven't had one. This I may jump on board with this.
If you're going to do it, it's limited time only,
right?
So it's not going to live forever. But yeah, and you can kind of customize your plan too. If there's like certain things you do want, certain things you don't. I'm sure they'll probably chuck in like extra controllers or whatever. They're going to want to make money off of this deal, and I'm sure it's to get you in with the intent that you're going to get other peripherals or things. But,
sure.
You go in there and you're just like, I want the Xbox One S or I want the Xbox One X with this plan. Boom. Walk out with that baby. Keep it for 2 years. Because when I was playing PlayStation Live and Xbox, I would have no problem committing to 2 years of that. For sure.
Yeah.
And I would be more likely to play more Xbox games with that kind of plan because I want to make sure I'm getting my value.
Right. Yep.
So I love this. I love this news. I'm excited. Even if I'm not going to take part in it, I think this is phenomenal.
I love it as well. And I may take advantage of this. We'll have to see.
Yeah, keep us posted.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Oh, okay. So I saw some news that maybe a little sad. Maybe sad's not the right way to put it, but apparently Game of Thrones is not going to be coming back in the spring of 2019 like we thought. There's been some rumblings that it may not, but basically what had happened was there was an interview on the Huffington Post with the visual effects supervisor Joe Bauer, and basically what had happened is that he said something to the effect that basically in 2 years' time we'll be eligible for the season 8 work for Emmy Award nominations. And they're getting ready to start it now. And so that may not seem like it says much, but if you know kind of the Emmy nominating process, to be eligible for the Emmys, your work has to have the majority of the episodes air by May 31st of that year. So if he's saying that they basically won't be eligible till the 2020 Emmy season, it means that the majority won't air by May 31st of 2019. So April release date's probably not going to happen. My guess is it's probably going to be pushed more to like May or June release date, and we're going to get this kind of over like the middle of the summer. That's what it's sounding like.
The funny thing is somebody had posted something about the fact that it had already been a year, and it hasn't even really felt like a year, and I haven't been like jonesing for the next Game of Thrones season. There's been so much this year. This year has been the year of media, I swear.
Right.
And I know things keep getting exponential. Like, I can't even imagine what's going to happen next year, but holy crap.
I felt like, and this is part of it for me, I almost feel like I've kind of forgotten about the Game of Thrones TV show somewhat, because there hasn't been a lot of news, and we've had so much good media this year that it's been easy to kind of forget that, oh yeah, there's still the last season to come. Which
is kind of the best place for them to be, really.
Right?
I mean, I know that it's good to keep the hype rolling, but right now, there's probably more risk of alienating fans who insist that they have it right now. And there's no danger that everybody and their dog's babysitter isn't going to be watching the next season for anyone who's been watching it before. I've even got a coworker who just started season 1 for the very first time. And
really?
And everyone's comments are like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could be watching it for the first time all over again." But I mean, like, there's still new viewers to this. There's still more people coming on board. There's no risk to them for delaying it really until it's ready to go, as long as they keep it low key until it's time to start that hype train full blast.
I agree with you. My only wish in all of this is that George R.R. Martin will get his next book out in this series, because I actually was introduced to this not through the TV show, but through the books. And I'm really curious to see how his story is going to play out now that the TV shows have gotten ahead of where he's at in the books.
Right.
So, but that probably is even further out than 2019, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. Well, speaking of TV shows that have never been forgotten, even though they ended a long time ago, there's Mr. Joss Whedon and his Firefly and Buffy antics. Interestingly enough, Buffy is Joss Whedon has a comic book series for Buffy that he's been running, right? So his series, he's actually it's been published through Dark Horse. They've been carrying the torch. He's actually taking the final Buffy comics to them like right away to finish up the whole comic book series, because Fox is taking the rights back to Buffy and Firefly. For Buffy, it's that they're coming out with this new Buffy series, which is a whole different thing to get into. But they want to have everything kind of all self-contained. They don't want to have a separate storyline going on in the comics with different characters than what's going on in TV. I get it. It's not that uncommon for situations like this, even though this is really kind of an uncommon situation to begin with. So he's going to be looking to end the Buffy series on comics for good with Dark Horse. So kind of keep an eye on that. I don't know if anybody's reading the comic book series. I've actually heard it's been pretty good, but if I'm going to dive into comics, there's 1,000 other things that are going to come before that, even though I liked Buffy. I thought was a pretty good show, and I love the way that Joss does female characters, especially female lead. I think that series was very empowering for females in media to begin with. So good for all that, but they also took Firefly back.
Yeah, that's what I'm more curious about.
And there's like nothing about this here, and there's no buzz about Firefly. If they were letting it go permanently and we're never going to do anything with it, it makes more sense for them to keep it, because they're not losing any tangential money due to cross series, that kind of thing.
Let me ask you this though. If Fox is getting the rights back to Firefly, this is just comic rights, correct?
The IP for Firefly, the full IP.
So the whole, and now Fox is going to be part of Disney. And Nathan Fillion wrapped up a big show for ABC, Castle, a little while back ago. Maybe he's inclined to continue working with the House of Mouse, and we know his love of Firefly. Maybe
You're putting a lot of dominoes together there, buddy.
maybe I know it's so wish fulfillment here.
But if we're gonna make a ballsy call here on the podcast, then you may as well just make it, because that's how something's gonna happen.
Okay, then let's make this right now. I'm going to call up Nathan Fillion. I'm going to get him to come on the show.
Hey,
he's going to break the
podcasts,
news. I know. He's going to break the news that Firefly is coming back here on the Fortress of Nerditude next week, so stay tuned. Is that too much? Too far?
I'm really glad that nobody pays us to do this, because
right.
we'd be putting that in jeopardy at this point, I think.
Yeah, wish fulfillment for sure.
Well, I would love to see some news about Firefly, anything, but it's been so buried with like very definitive, it's done, it's over. But why would they buy it back? They're not doing anything with anything else. I don't know. So yeah.
I don't know. Speaking of shows that are about to die, talking about a show that's dead we wish would come back. I saw this. This is really kind of interesting. The Big Bang Theory. It's been on TV now for 11 seasons. It's getting ready to go into its 12th season. And it was announced just a few days ago that it's actually being canceled. And when I heard that, I was a little surprised, because it's still averaging like 19 million viewers an episode, which is ridiculous numbers in today's landscape.
Sure.
Big numbers.
It's like one of the few television shows that are making a lot of money.
Right. It's actually, when it's all said and done, it's going to be the longest running multi-cam sitcom.
I love how that has to be qualified. Like longest running multicam sitcom filmed on the West Coast only on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something.
Right. But the interesting thing is that it's come out, the reason why it's being canceled. Basically, Jim Parsons, the actor that plays Sheldon Cooper, has decided that he wants to step away and walk away from the show and continue doing other things. He's been in some movies. He's done some voiceover for some movies. And his career is on the upswing. He's doing other stuff. He's been in movies recently. And so he's decided that it's time for him to walk away after 12 seasons. And basically the interesting thing is that CBS had offered Jim Parsons, along with stars Kaylee Cuoco, Johnny Galecki, Kunal Nayyar, and Simon Helberg, all the original kind of 5 that were on the show at the very beginning, $1 million per episode if they would do 2 more seasons, which would total to about $50 million if they would stay on for 2 more years for each of them. But that was their negotiation. He said no thanks and decided to walk away. And so the show's going to end basically for those reasons, which is kind of surprising, because usually we go through this whole period, kind of in the early summertime when TV shows are renewed or canceled, and that kind of news usually comes out now. But it didn't. It was kind of a delayed announcement. I don't know if they just didn't know in time, or if it was kind of sprung on them later.
Well, the thing is, though, is that we have no precedent here for multicam sitcoms. Like Friends was 10 seasons, right?
Right.
So, think about it I would say that it's reasonably safe to say that most people who have acting in their blood don't go out to play one role their entire career, and it's not about the money that's involved at that point. And especially since he's on the upswing, and I'm sure he can pull more than that through other things.
Yep.
One movie, done, right? So with that in mind, it's not probably so much about the money. He doesn't want to spend his entire career, 12 years. It's
a long time.
That's like more than half of, old school retirement type kind of thing. And it's lucky for him, actually, that he's able to get other roles and do other things, because even phenomenal actors like Patrick Stewart, he gets typecast.
Right.
And so it's difficult for people to kind of look at hiring an actor for something beyond that role. and actually want to do something more fulfilling. I'm sure he doesn't want to be that strange, semi-autistic guy that always is going to get the laughs from people and everyone coming up to him his whole life and, oh, remember that scene that you did and remember that line, say that line, I'm sure he wants to do something more than that, because I'm sure he's no longer challenged. At that point, he's just, he's flipping a switch. He's that character. He walks away, and I'm sure it's probably kind of an empty experience at this point.
Yeah, I know he's also doing the voiceover work for the CBS show Young Sheldon, which kind of focuses on his characters, like, early years.
Is that being canceled?
Nope. Nope, that's not being canceled. But that's something, though, that he probably comes in, sits down in a booth once every few weeks, or maybe at the beginning of the season.
They probably do it at all at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, beginning of the season, and he just sits there and records his lines for, a few days, a week, and then doesn't have to come back for another season.
Right.
So, but yeah, anyway, that's ending. It's kind of big news. 19 million viewers. It's still a ratings juggernaut, but it's going to kind of go out on a high note as far as ratings and, that sort of thing.
I've never cared enough about it. Because it's not like a big series or anything like that I'm going to binge. They're all kind of self-contained. Sure, there's some continuity between episodes. But like with any sitcom, for me anyway, I could watch one episode every few months or something and not feel like I've lost anything.
Right.
But it would be great to have it finally hit syndication and finally have it hit streaming services. Because I would like to watch the show. It's funny enough. I'm not going to pay for network TV or whatever, go out of my way to watch it all. But if it's there and available, maybe I'll watch a couple episodes at a time every other week or something. It's a good show. I see why it's successful. It's just not my thing.
I think we have the first maybe like 7 or 8 seasons on DVD, and then we kind of stopped buying them because, frankly, the humor was a lot better in the earlier seasons, and then over time, just the quality I don't think is quite there anymore.
And it's really the same jokes with different situations behind them.
Yep, and you do get that. So you get the fatigue. So anyway,
fatigue is real. Just saying.
Fatigue is real.
Well, speaking of other things that are dying away at a very fast pace, I know you usually do the Movie Pass stuff, and I know you do it with glee every time we talk about putting a hatchet in that baby. Right? I called it that we're not going to see Movie Pass at the end of the year. Well, another nail in that coffin is underway. Annual Movie Pass subscribers that signed up before they started cutting the number of times you could see movies or whatever, they were still getting the being able to see a movie a day, which went away for most of us. Though the available movies was still kind of dwindling away like it was for everyone. They have announced that they are no longer going to support the annual plan, and that they are going to discontinue any extra benefits they had for the annual users and offer refunds for those for the amount of time that they still had remaining. This does 2 major things. One is it really kind of says to anyone under any contractual kind of thing that means diddly squat. They don't have the money to sustain it no matter what happens. Great. This also says that they don't even assume that they're going to be here in a year.
Right.
They know that the nail is coming in the coffin. This prevents them from, I'm sure that some people are going to be ticked off and try to do the class action lawsuit again and again, terms and services, blah, blah, blah. But they're spelling out their own demise. So.
Yep. We called it here. We did.
So, yeah. So they're going to lose all their annual benefits. They're going to be going down to the 3 movies, 3 movies a month, which that's just not even the same form of plan or service that they envisioned originally. They don't even have like they're not even doing like surge pricing anymore on some things. Now, even the big movies aren't even there. The Meg and Crazy Rich Asians, not even available.
Right.
So it's just I don't know how much more they can cut from this before it becomes nothing, but
well, you get to the point where it's like, you know what? It's almost cheaper just to go straight to the movie theater and purchase the one ticket. Because, I guess still, if you were to go only see 3 movies a month, for $10 a month. That still is cheaper than paying full retail, I guess.
Sure, but
However,
they're not movies you want to see or want to see
Right.
when you have the availability to see them.
Right.
It's not like 3 movies a week that you could go see in 3D or IMAX if you wanted.
That is true. That is true.
And get snacks delivered to your seat. It's not that.
That's the best part of the whole thing, right
I'm telling
there.
you, man, I am in love with AMC Movie Pass or Stubbs A-List, whatever.
Stubbs.
I'm excited to
Movie
actually
Pass.
go see another movie, which this other person definitely likes to go see movies on a regular basis. So
Nice. So I have a Nintendo Switch.
As do
enjoy
I.
playing it. And Nintendo Switch has been they've been rolling out more games. They've been rolling out more services, adding new things to the console. Fairly regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've announced that there's this new thing that they're partnering up with called Inky Pen this fall. And basically what it is, for $8 a month, it's an app that lets you read comic books on it. And you get unlimited comic books from these publishers. And you use the controls. You can either use the touch and you can swipe, or you can use the handheld, the buttons on the joystick or whatever. However, they're saying thousands of comics available at launch. And I looked at the list of the providers. I'm thinking right off the bat, if you're doing something like this, you're going to be bringing in the big hitters, Marvel and DC, right? Nope.
No.
Marvel
and I know a
Marvel
little
and
something
DC.
about that, so no.
Yeah, you're getting Valiant, IDW, Dynamite Entertainment, Les Humanoides,
IDW is
Andrew
big.
McNeil. IDW is big, but this is more to me like indie comics
Yeah.
versus like the
Yep.
big hitters. And of course, a lot of people are saying, well, if this does really well, maybe the Comixology, which is kind of through Amazon, where you can get, Marvel and DC stuff in kind of like under kind of one banner, or like the Marvel Unlimited or the DC Universe might come there. And that's great. I use Comixology to get a lot of my comics, and I read them on my tablet. But at first I heard this and I went, okay, hey, if they're going to do this, maybe I do this on my Switch, because I could keep my Switch in docked mode and I could use a controller and I could read comics up on my big screen TV in my bedroom.
Okay.
But when I saw, like when I'm flipping through it or something, if I'm just kind of sitting there.
If you're that kind of nerd, sure.
Yeah, why not? But I saw this and it's like, nah, I'm not reading anything from Dynamite Entertainment right now. My comic book time is very, very limited. So I like to stick to the heavy hitters and the stuff that I'm interested in. So this is a cool idea, and I hope that it does well. I just don't think it's for me. I don't think I'm their market.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is with the Comixology and the DC and Marvel ones that are separate, those are very specifically licensed. There's a fee that's almost as high as that $8 a month anyway, and so that would kind of definitely blow it up. And I know I can't see like a $15 a month service really working on Switch right now.
Yeah, probably not.
So, it's kind of either you're going to get all the independents, or you're going to get Marvel, or you're going to get DC.
Yeah.
I think there is an effect of this, that it does get perhaps more publicity for those other comics out to more people. I'm sure there are people that are definitely Switch files that will kind of gobble this up, and hey, it's another medium to get those comics out there. Because really, DC and Marvel, they don't need to market to a new platform to be successful. So hopefully this does something for independent comics, a bit more. Did you see if Dark Horse was on there at all? I think they're actually,
Dark Horse does not show that they're on there.
I think Dark Horse
on the
is
list.
actually owned by DC, though. Maybe. I think they're like some kind of subsidiary or something, or somebody owns them.
Marvel.
Marvel.
Dark Horse is Marvel.
Okay, got it. I knew they were a subsidiary of somebody. But yeah, so I hope it does business for that. It's not for me. It's not for you. But I think it's important. And I think it's important to Nintendo's game plan to provide services that are unique from the other major consoles, because they have to be innovative. They have to do unique things. Switch is the most innovative console that I think they could have come up with. Perfect. It got them back in the game because Nintendo has been floundering for a while, even if they've still been in the race, not by much, right?
Right.
So I think this is good that they're branching out into things like that. I may even get it just to kind of support it. I like this kind of stuff. Maybe I'll check out some new comics. So who knows?
You never know.
One thing I do know is that, Mr. James Gunn is not going back to Guardians of the Galaxy. Right?
Which we talked about, yeah.
We did. So we've also talked about, now this is kind of a combination of two different conversations that we had before. We talked about how not only when say someone gets accused of sexual harassment, not only is it them that is affected, it's also the crews and everything else.
Yeah, sure.
James Gunn was not accused of harassment. However, he was, put under the spotlight for something really that should have stayed long gone, dead and buried, because I have words I don't really want to say on the podcast, go out of their way to ruin somebody's career. I get it. That's vindictive, whatever. You're a jerk for doing so. But now, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was actually already prepping for pre-production in Atlanta. They were going to start filming in January or February of next year. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 production is officially on hold. They're going to continue searching for a new director. All of the pre-production film crews that were involved have been released to do other projects.
Now that makes sense to me.
It does.
It sounds bad.
It does. Because released to work on other projects is not like, oh, they've got another project to go work on. They still have to go find that work. They are effectively laid off.
Right. But think about it this way. Like, if let's say these people are scouting agents, scouting for locations and whatnot, and they're saying, hey, we can't pay you right now. We don't have a director, so we don't know what these locations are going to be, what the new vision's going to be from the new director. So they have to halt everything. So the studio's not going to want to pay, 20, 30, 40 employees, just to sit around and do nothing while they find a new director and then figure out what the director wants to do.
Right, but with other films where we've lost directors, the way this is shaped up, because this is far too commonplace these days, is that they still continue the pre-production and they still get, the casting involved, and they do everything except for the filming and even make some headway to that effect while they're searching for that new director. At this point, it's so deep into, the fact that nothing is going anywhere that it could be indefinite at this point, that they know it's going to be that entirely new vision, and it's fizzled right now. And I would say it's not even a sure thing that we're ever going to see part 3.
Oh, I think we're going to get a part 3. Those other two made too much money that Disney wouldn't do a part 3. What I'm worried about more is that they're going to take the script that James Gunn wrote and they're going to scrap it. And they're going to get a new director and they're going to write a new script so that it's completely, scrub out anything James Gunn related to this project. And if they do that, that for sure will set the project back a few years.
I don't know that they were looking to scrap the work that he had already provided. It's just they're not willing to employ him any further. I don't know if that was the direct intent, but given how long it may take and the fact that the MCU is really a living, breathing entity and things change every movie and things that they want to take the MCU in new directions for, it's just, this version of it, this vision of it is definitely gone. I'm not as convinced that you are that we'll see a volume 3. I know that there were other MCU movies that we thought we were going to see that eventually just kind of disappeared. Who knows? But I don't know. It irks me not just that these people did this to one guy, but it's not just even the film crews that are suffering from that. It's the fans. It's the MCU direction entirely in the first place. This is causing a shift in the direction maybe they wanted to go. This is just, ugh. I'm mad. I'm mad at people.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can make you happy. Let's talk Lord of the Rings.
Oh, well, maybe it can.
Let's talk Lord of the Rings for a second. Lord of the Rings is a great movie. and in it we have lovable hobbits. And one of those hobbits, Dominic Monaghan to be exact, who plays the Hobbit Merry, has been cast in the upcoming Star Wars episode number 9, which will reunite...
They're bringing Ewoks back.
Let's hope not. But basically, it's going to reunite Dominic Monaghan and J.J. Abrams. They worked together on the series Lost when he played the character of Charlie.
Yep.
And
I liked Charlie.
That's actually kind of partially why we named Charlie, our son Charlie, because we liked his character. And then, of course, it was a family name, and my grandfather was Charles, but we really kind of liked Charlie. So yeah, anyway, it was reported just recently. Deadline, I think Deadline got the drop on it, saying that Dominic Monaghan's coming back, joining up with J.J. Abrams. He's going to be in Star Wars. We don't know really what he's going to be doing yet because all casting right now is hush hush. I mean, we talked about Kerry Russell being, cast, but we don't know what she's doing. So, we do know a few things. We know Billy Dee's coming back. He's going to be playing Lando Calrissian. We know Carrie Fisher's going to be used with previously shot footage. We know that Mark Hamill's going to be reprising his role as Luke Skywalker. And now we've got a Hobbit. So
Ewoks.
I'm hoping that maybe we get hobbits in space.
Hey, that could do it. Funny thing, are you done with that? Because
yeah.
So the funny thing is I'm sitting here looking. I just still had my notes, and there's an ad that came up for the Inky whatever for the Switch.
Yeah, Inky Pen.
Inky Pen, yep. One thing that the ad mentioned, just kind of in its blurbs that I didn't even think about, was manga. So this is an international app. It's not just US, and it's going to be on every region for the Switch. Manga is doing well enough in the US, but manga is the comics of Japan.
Right.
These silly little one-off comic books, haha. But that's huge. I mean, if they've got, I don't know enough about manga to know if they're like major producers of manga that are involved, but that would be like having DC and Marvel in the US to having, all kinds of manga in Japan. That could be bigger than I think we were thinking. I think.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Do you think?
I think.
Well, Stu, are you all tapped out for Rebel Intelligence?
I am, but I'm a little dubious because
I have one last surprise Rebel Intelligence article.
Okay.
This actually came up I saw this at the very last minute, right before we actually started recording. Mm-hmm. So I don't have all the key details. And this isn't like I'm like, going to shock you with anything, but we've talked for a while about how we know Jared Leto is going to reprise his role as the Joker in the Suicide Squad follow-up movie, the sequel, and how he's also going to be doing a standalone movie called The Joker.
Well, he's not doing The Joker.
Well,
it's Joaquin Phoenix is doing The Joker.
No. Joaquin Phoenix is doing a movie called The Joker. Jared Leto's doing one called The Joker, and they're both going to be standalone movies. Yeah, this gets real weird, right? This is the part where, I look at DC and I'm like, get your house in order, guys. You can't... It makes no sense to do a standalone movie based on a character unless they're telling, it way back in time when you've got another actor currently playing that same role in their big box office movies. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because that's going to get me going. I just think it's dumb. But Alec Baldwin, the actor that's been around forever, 30 Rock, stuff on Saturday Night Live recently, The Hunt for Red October, plenty of movies, right? I always think of him in The Hunt for October because my dad loved that movie. Anyway, he has signed on to Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie to play the character of Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father. And typically that character has been kind of short-lived. It's been acted, and then it's like, hey, and bang, he's dead, and now we've got Batman. But apparently, he's been cast alongside rumored co-star Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, and Mark Maron have now been apparently on board. But he's going to play a cheesy, tanned businessman version of Thomas Wayne, not the traditional kind of, philanthropist billionaire, but more, let's say more of kind of like a 1980s Donald Trump version of Thomas Wayne. Which is really interesting because he's played a very characterized version of Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live in recent years.
All right.
Apparently, though, this Joker movie, only has a budget of about $55 million. So it's kind of a modest thing, and that basically it's being made to be more of a character study. Director Todd Phillips says it's going to be more of a character study, and basically it's going to explore a man disregarded by society, not only a gritty character study, but also a broader cautionary tale. And so it sounds to me like we're going to be seeing more of an origin story of the Joker, as opposed to, him in his full regalia, I guess you'd say. But
right.
Alec Baldwin, Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Mark Maron. I mean, this cast is starting to sound pretty legit. I mean, these aren't like nobodies.
I'm actually no, and you're absolutely right. A little surprising. You said I wasn't going to be too surprised. I am actually a little surprised. For the record, is kind of looking at, there is no name for the Jared Leto one, but Jared Leto does have a standalone, so that's
right.
That's interesting. But Joaquin Phoenix, I like him as an actor. I like that he's definitely, not all there. He's got his own attitudes, and I know that he's got some kind of issues with people or whatever the case may be. But I like the roles that he chooses to play, and I like him in all of them. I happen to think he will be a really good Joker that's not too far from the traditional Joker. Like, even if it's an origin story, it's not going to be like a Jared Leto version where it's completely just tilted all the way over, or even like Heath Ledger's Joker was still pretty risky, right? So
yeah.
But I think he'll play more of a traditional one, and I think he'll do it with enough of his own flair that it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, nice.
But
anyway,
with the
that's the last
cast
thing.
there, that's saying something.
Yeah, that was the last thing I had. So I saw that last minute. I thought we'd toss it in there and get it in before next week when it'd be old news.
Yeah, I definitely hadn't have seen that because I was too busy spraying myself with Mountain Dew. Or with root beer.
Root beer. You'll have to tell us how that goes next week when you do the Mountain Dew challenge.
That'll be easy. I can chug Mountain Dews all day long.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Stu, last week we had a movie club. We talked about Christopher Robin, the latest kind of Disney retread of our childhood. Mm-hmm. And we had some, let's say, varying opinions on the movie. Yeah. I think you were very in the, I loved this movie. I was very in the, I don't know if I'd ever watch this again.
Hey, this
camp.
Speaking of this other person, she wants to see Christopher Robin again.
Really?
With me.
Oh, very nice. I hope it's just as good on a second watch. You have to let me know. But we asked our question. Our question of the week last week was, hey, what's your favorite character from the 100 Acre Woods? Because we were talking about Winnie the Pooh, and we got some responses, and so we're going to go over to those now. We're going to go to email where we always start when we have Peter Christensen. He says, "Dear nerds, pull it, Chewie. That was uncomfortable."
Yeah, well, imagine me sitting here listening to Spencer talk about it.
Yeah. He says, "Full disclosure, I work at Amazon, but I've never heard of the streaming DVR product until you mentioned it. I can definitely see the value of a DVR for streaming if it can save from multiple sources and provide a common interface for that. I would love to have one place with all of my YouTube subscriptions, video search results, and content from multiple providers, Amazon, Apple, Hulu, etc. It would also be nice for people that have slow internet to queue up shows so they can watch without buffering." That's a fair point. That's something I wasn't thinking of.
Well, like, you already kind of, you already do that, though. Like, you can do that with Netflix. You can do that with Amazon Prime. You can...
Yeah, but if you had one repository where all of that could kind of go, I mean, anyway, he says, rebuttal to Stu's continued skepticism about esports. The internet is so huge that none of the numbers have to make sense. It just works.
Yeah, well.
He says, Winnie the Pooh was never my cup of tea, so I'll give an alternative nomination of Archimedes, the talking owl from Disney's Sword in the Stone. Close enough. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Archimedes definitely, I think, is a little hipper of an owl than Owl from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, there's nothing hip about Owl, so.
No, he's pretty...
I'm a hipper owl than Owl.
Your owl is hipper than Owl? Anyway.
No, I, as a human being, am a hipper owl than Owl.
Gotcha. Paul, over on Facebook, Paul Calicote. Haven't seen the movie yet, but my wife says her favorite character is Rabbit because he's always been the bossy one.
Yep.
And mine is Eeyore because he is slow and steady like me.
All right. There you go.
Now we have one more Facebook response.
I bet I know who it's going to be from.
Buckle your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to go for a ride.
It's Caleb Alberts.
This is going to be the ride of the I'm going to beat Spencer over the head for his opinions and tell him why he's wrong.
Yes.
In a loving, friendly way. It says, Caleb Albers. By the way, Caleb, okay, Google, search. I don't know. I got nothing this time. Maybe that just leave it like that. So it kicks off and then doesn't do anything. And Tyler Viditow, I'm sorry. Your GPS is going to stop. Caleb says, okay, I would like to apologize to Stu for the comments I've made about throwing shade at superhero stuff. That, in my eyes, is forgivable.
Oh.
What isn't is throwing shade at Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
I like Stu's view a lot better. Krypton, you can't go see a movie like that in the mindset of an adult. Okay, first of all, I am an adult. It's hard not to have that mindset. Just saying. The goal of this movie was to show people that it's okay to release your inner child, something I don't think you did while watching this. Oof. Now, granted, if I view this movie like an adult, I can see your points. But the target audience was people that grew up watching the shows and movies, which I'm assuming you did, since Pooh was released in 1966. Unless you are super old, in which case you look great for your age. Why, thank you. But I'm not that old. But that's about the only positive thing, so I'm going to take it. It says, but this movie, in the eyes of a kid at heart, was amazing. I had a huge grin on my face the entire time because of the nostalgic feelings I had, and the voice casting was perfection. But I didn't think you knew this from the way you were talking, but the voice of Pooh and Tigger is the guy that's been doing the voices for them since 1988. So, of course he got the feel for Pooh down. He is Pooh.
Well, I was kind of thinking about the original 60s Pooh kind of
stuff.
Yeah,
me too. Me too.
But anyway.
But, I mean, yeah. He says, also, I don't believe Christopher Robin was going through a midlife crisis at all. I think he was brainwashed with society's expectations and trying to provide for his family. His only issue was trying to maintain the balance between family and work. I think that's something we can all learn from, and I don't think that qualifies as a midlife crisis. That's just a life crisis.
Well, potato, because I'm going to assert that is exactly what causes a midlife crisis, and thus that's the exact product that comes out of it. People that don't conform to that societal norm and the pressure involved, they don't have the midlife crisis. So I think it's really both. But continue. I feel there's more.
There is. There is a lot this movie can teach us. It taught us that sometimes you need to take time to have fun. Mm-hmm. It taught that everyone can still be a kid inside. Mm-hmm. And it taught that going with the flow sometimes leads to the best things life has to offer. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't feel like this movie was a period piece either. The movie was set when the books were. Yes, it is set in post-World War II London, but that wasn't a huge part of the movie. The magic was there, Krypton. Everything that needed to be there was. And I'm going to make a Polar Express reference right now. Just because you can't hear the bell doesn't mean it's broken. Now, for the question of the week. Tigger and his song. Speaking of which, I don't think they made fun of the fact that the song is overdone. That's how kids' shows are meant to be. They repeat things over and over. Blue's Clues had the male song, Dora had the swiper, no swiping thing, and basically every show with whatever they're trying to teach kids. I don't think the movie was making fun of the Tigger song and its repetitive theme. It was keeping true to the show and all the movies with Tigger in them. This movie deserved to do way better in the box office than it did, but it just didn't. It didn't do it well. Doesn't make it any less of a fantastic movie.
The only reason that I disagree with the Tigger repetition thing is because they even gave the deliberate nod with, what was it that Eeyore said? He does this every time or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a tongue-in-cheek nod to that.
I mean, yes, it absolutely fit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it didn't, but they just, they acknowledged it there, so they knew what they were doing.
So,
but
let me rebut a few things here.
Nope. Let's move on. Nope. I like Caleb this week. Let's move on.
It's because he's on your side.
It's nice to be vindicated.
I think that I'm going to disagree with Caleb on that it's not a midlife crisis, because it screams midlife crisis all the way with Christopher Robin's character, and that's okay. A different opinion there is not a bad thing. However, I do stand by my point that this was a period piece movie. I get that that's when the books were originally written, but that's fine. I don't see how that would disqualify this movie from being a period piece. It's set in a certain time frame. It's filmed to look that way. It has kind of the attitudes of that time and its characters and some of the things like that. They talk about the whole idea of like a 40-hour work week and giving, employees paid time off so that they can go on a vacation, which was a novel, crazy idea to the employer because that wasn't a commonplace thing. That very much fit into that time period of that not being a thing.
I'm gonna say that you're both focusing on period piece way too much.
That's true, probably.
So basic definition of period piece: an object or work that is set in or strongly reminiscent of an earlier historical period. That's absolutely true, but it doesn't necessarily have any connotations, I think.
So I don't care for the Polar Express. So his
you
call
just don't
back
believe.
there.
You just don't believe.
No, and I guess I understand what Caleb is trying to say is that maybe he thinks that I went in looking at it too much from an adult perspective and not trying to look at it from a child's perspective. And you know what? You're right, Caleb. You're not wrong in that assessment, but that's because I am an adult and I was trying to go in as an adult who loved the original movies, and with not making that comparison that like it had to be the same as the original movies. And I don't think it was. And they did the little nods, like the thing we talked about, kind of the tongue-in-cheek Eeyore making reference to the Tigger song and some of the musical cues and whatnot. Like a lot of that was there, but just for me, like this movie just didn't hit me the way that I wanted it to, or I expected it to, and definitely not the way that it hit you, Caleb, and definitely not the way that it hit Stu.
Yep.
And that's okay, because, if we all agreed on everything, we wouldn't have anything to talk about, and we wouldn't have a podcast. So...
yeah, because nerds would have been just fine all along, and there'd be no reason to vilify them.
That's right.
Nah, I'm kind of with him on that last point, though, because for me, it was like I went and sat down with my 7-year-old daughter, and she held on to my arm the whole time, and my inner child just like kind of came out of my body and sat there next to her while I, as an adult, just kind of turned off for a minute. And it definitely was the childish part of the nostalgia that got it for me. And if I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much on my own, and I probably would have seen it more from your perspective. So I don't know, maybe that affects it. Maybe it doesn't. Like even thinking about going on a date with somebody, that childishness is going to be part of that as well. So I could see having a really good time there too. I would never want to see this on my own though.
Yeah. Stu, what can our super friends do to help us out this week? We ask questions, we get answers. We always appreciate our super friends for doing that. But what can they do to help us this week?
Send more and more emails and Facebook replies telling Spencer why he's wrong about Christopher Robin. Somehow find a way to convince him. And then once you've done that, feel free to head on over to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating there, help us get the numbers up, get on the lists, yada, yada. The more exposure we can get, the better. And we definitely get more exposure by getting higher ratings on iTunes. And also, I just really want to give what they also can do. And I know this is about the 5-star stuff, but honestly, keep interacting with us. Holy crap. The last couple months, just I've seen it increase, and I've seen more involvement from the Super Friends and more engagement and discussions with the wives. And I mean, keep doing that too, because that gives us a high.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll say, that I'll just add, because I love all the interaction we've had, and said, the conversations with the wives, and we picked up some new listeners that have been responding and joining in. If you like this show and you like what we're doing, tell a friend about it.
Yes.
Do what super friend Chad does, where someone says, "Hey, I need podcast recommendations," and he's like, "You got to go check out these guys." Every week he's on that train helping us out. But if you like this show, tell a friend, tell a family member, someone who you think might enjoy it, and turn them on to us, because we enjoy friends and we enjoy interacting with our super friends.
Faux show.
Stu, so we're talking about Christopher Robin, and I'm not going to say this. I mean, we talked about this last week. I'm not going to make this yet, but maybe, just maybe, in a few years, when I think my boys are a little older, I may have to revisit this movie and see how I feel about this, because maybe I'm looking at it from a different perspective than you and Caleb did. Over the weekend, my wife and I were talking, and we were trying to figure out if we wanted to watch a movie, and I said, "Oh, hey, we have Avengers Infinity War now. We can watch that." And she said, "You know what? I really want to watch Black Panther, because I only saw that the one time." And I kind of went,
okay,
because I saw Black Panther in the theater once, and it was getting all this hype and all this crazy, this is the best movie ever, da 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 da. And then I watched Black Panther, and I felt like it fell short compared to a lot of other Marvel movies recently. And I wasn't super over the moon about it. I thought the end fight scene was ridiculous, where it's like punch, punch, kick, kick, let's wait for a train to go past for 5 minutes. Punch, punch, kick, kick, let's wait for a train again. Punch, punch, oh, another train. I was like, oh, it just seemed very contrived, very drawn out, and I didn't care for it. It pulled me out of the movie-going experience. But my wife wants to watch this movie again, and so I think sometime this week I'm going to sit down with her, and I'm going to give this movie a second viewing. I'm going to try to go in with open eyes and see if I have the same experience or if I have a different experience with it. Because sometimes you need to get a set of fresh eyes on a film or a video game or something, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so I loved Black Panther, and I'm actually kind of surprised that you didn't, but or that you didn't love it as much as I did. Anyway, I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was trying to do. It wasn't trying to do more than it was set out to do, which I think is the danger of some of the other Marvel movies that have come out recently. And I think it set out to tell one story, and I'm glad that they kind of stuck to that. And I really enjoyed the heck out of it. But like with Christopher Robin, part of the reason isn't just because I'm sitting there with my 7-year-old watching this movie. It's because I'm empathizing with her. When she's laughing, I can feel why that's funny to her, and that helps it to feel funny to me. And so, like, I think even maybe not just seeing it that second time, but seeing it in a different way. You're watching it with your wife that time. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons you could go back and see something again, or with a book maybe that was hard to finish, a different environment, different place in your life, picking it up again. I don't know. I think there's different ways you can re-explore things, and I think that's good to challenge yourself that way. So, bravo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes I look at things, I mean, and this is a silly example, but I didn't eat pickles for the longest time. I tried them once when I was a kid, and I hated them, and I had a bad experience. And then I didn't eat pickles again for probably 30 years. And it's only been in the last few years where I've ventured out to say, like, I'm not necessarily going to go just eat a pickle, just to eat a pickle.
But you'll throw some in a deep dish pizza at random.
Right, or I'll eat them on a hamburger, or I'll if they come in something, I won't pick them out and I'll eat them. And like I've my opinion of pickles has improved some. It's still not amazing.
Let me ask you this: does Brita like pickles? Is that maybe part of it? Or
She does like pickles. Like, oh my gosh, like we moved from our apartment to our house and I had 5 pickle jars of all different varieties sitting in the back of our fridge. I'm like, when did we get all these? She's like, oh, they've been back there for a couple of years. I'm like, and they're still here. Why? And you want to move them with us? Why? Yeah.
I actually find myself enjoying certain foods more or less based on a partner, for sure.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
so
anyway, that's a divergence.
This whole idea of kind of like going back and revisiting things. Have you ever had like a movie or a TV show or a video game or something you can think of where you had like a negative experience and then you revisited it and something changed or you liked it better?
Yeah, quite a few things. And it's funny to think because I know we were kind of talking about this and I was thinking to myself, if there really was anything, and I sat down and played some World of Warcraft. I was like, I really used to hate this game. When WoW came out, I did not like it. I was neck deep into EverQuest 2. The only reason I ever picked up World of Warcraft in the first place was because so many people were picking it up that I know. And I was like, okay, well, everyone that I knew that was playing EverQuest 2 just jumped ship, so I'll at least check it out. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I hated the systems in the game. I thought they were too child-friendly, if you will. I hesitate to use casual-friendly because I prefer casual situations, but it was just like the game did everything for you, and the kills were so fast, I didn't feel like I had to earn anything. I didn't like it. I hated it. I played World of Warcraft for about 2 to 3 weeks, and I did not pick it up again until the end of Burning Crusade. And funny enough, when I picked it up that time, just something, I think it was about the Burning Crusade ending area stuff, I kind of liked a bit more. I liked how the character systems had grown and how the game had adjusted some things. And I've been hooked ever since. Even during my breaks, I will never say that WoW is a bad game. I love it. And it's just kind of, like doing the same thing for so long. I personally don't have that kind of attention span. So, but yeah, World of Warcraft for me, as much as I love it now, as hyped as I am, as much as I will shout its, everything that's great about it from the mountaintops, I almost never went back to World of Warcraft.
Wow.
What about you? Besides Black Panther.
Right. Well, I've
we'll
still
see.
got to go back.
We'll see.
We'll see. So there's a TV show that I love with a passion, and the show's got a cult following. It's no longer on the air, but when I first watched it, I watched the pilot episode, and I kind of went, yeah, no, this looks dumb. I don't get it. And that's the TV show Community. And if you haven't seen Community, it's literally a sitcom about a disgraced attorney who basically like forged credentials to get licensed, and he has to go back to college in order to get a real degree so he can get his license renewed with the bar. And he takes a Spanish class and he wants to hit on this girl, and so in order to hit on her, he forms a fake Spanish study group. And then she ends up inviting this kind of like nerdy film student, and then some other people show up, a kind of a naive, overachieving girl, Annie, and a former high school football star, Troy, and like this millionaire business guy that's like, super old, retired, Pierce Hawthorne, and they kind of form this little study group. And I saw that first episode and I kind of went, not very funny. And I literally did not get back to it until after the 4th season was over. And then someone's like, oh, you really should check this out. You really should look into this. And it was streaming somewhere, I believe, or I don't remember. Someone loaned me the first season. And I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to watch 4 or 5 episodes. Because, half hour comedy. let me get past the first pilot. And I got into probably about the 4th or 5th episode, and I was laughing and I was having a good time. And it really kind of caught a hold of me. It's a lot of meta humor and pop culture references and a lot of really smart writing. And there's a Dungeons and Dragons episode. I think that's in maybe the 2nd or 3rd season. It's probably the best episode of the entire series. Just fan-freaking-tastic. But the show's super funny, and I love it, and it's now probably one of my favorite TV comedies of all time. But at the time, I watched the first pilot, and then I just said, nope, I'm done. And so, like, that was something I was really glad that I went back and gave a second look at and gave it a little bit more of a chance, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's funny because I kind of lump, so kind of a 3 in 1. They all kind of evolved the same for me, and that was Parks and Rec, The Office, and 30 Rock.
Yep.
All 3 of them, I watched most of the first season the first time around, and I just wasn't getting it. I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I love having fun with my daughter. I mean, comedy is definitely, I don't know. I enjoy it a lot. Horror, comedy, sci-fi, fantasy. There's no preference between those 4 things for me. But it felt like pointless comedy. It was kind of stupid humor across the board on all 3 of them. And I just really never gave them another chance. And then 30 Rock, I was talking with a buddy of mine, Justin, and he adores Tina Fey. First of all, and he was like describing some of the jokes, and like he couldn't keep himself from laughing, telling me about the show, and I'm like, this guy's an idiot. But so I went back and I revisited it, and even from the very start, I don't know, something had clicked, and I ended up watching it, and I loved it. And there were some episodes that I was rolling, and so that kind of turned into me giving The Office another chance. Same thing happened. Parks and Recreation, same thing happened. Parks and Rec is now one of my favorite all-time comedies. And I don't know, it was just such a very different view. And I can't even say it was like I had to get past the first X number of episodes, because it was really, I didn't enjoy it at all the first time. And the second time I enjoyed it from the very start. So, and I think it was...
Why do you think that is?
I think it was just kind of... I mean, I didn't really think about this or reflect on it at all, but I think it was just kind of hearing about it from somebody else's perspective, someone that I know is intelligent, and someone who kind of explained why they thought it was funny and what the root of the joke was, and why, even though I know he's like super uptight about a lot of things, that he can appreciate something like this for something maybe deeper than I was thinking was there. And I don't know. And I think once I got through 30 Rock, my overall openness to this type of comedy had already been opened, and so The Office and Parks and Recreation were easy to follow along with.
See, it's interesting because Parks and Rec actually is another one that I didn't like right at first. And I think for me, I started thinking about why. Because with The Office, I loved The Office from day one. It was that really awkward, type of situation that, like, I know people say it's just very cringy. Like, you just sit there and you just cringe at some of the things people say. I'm like, I love that kind of humor. Like, I really dug it. And 30 Rock was different, very smart, very intelligently written. They play on some of the stereotypes, like Alec Baldwin, who's on 30 Rock. Alec Baldwin's a very, very liberal person in real life, politically speaking, but his character is an extremely conservative character, all about corporate America, all about like the right-leaning kind of mode. But so I knew that, and so like I could really appreciate the fact that he was playing this role and playing up the tropes of it and making it really funny. But those shows were 2 separate shows for me. I loved both of them from the beginning. But Parks and Rec, when it came out, its first pilot episode, maybe even the second episode, I think I watched the first 2, it seemed to me like a bad clone of The Office, because it was filmed in a lot of the same style where you could kind of see it, but then they'd also kind of have like the little interviews where they'd pull people aside and, kind of talk with them, which was very much very popularized by The Office here in the US. And so to me, it just seemed kind of like a knockoff clone, but about, a local government in this, fictional town of Pawnee, Indiana. And so I didn't get it at first. And I stepped away and I said, not for me. And then eventually, I think somewhere after the third season, maybe fourth season, it was on Netflix. And I started going back and I was like, okay, everyone's talking about this Ron Swanson character and Leslie Knope. I'm like, let me see what this is about. And I started watching it, and then I don't know what it was, but it was different. Maybe I'd been far enough removed from The Office at this point so that I wasn't making that direct comparison anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
And then it seemed to just stand on its own. I was like, oh, this is written really, really well. This is really funny. And Parks and Rec is up there. I mean, it's one of my favorite comedies of all time as well. And it's interesting that it's one of my favorites of all time. But at first, I didn't like it.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned cringeworthy. For me, that was Breaking Bad.
Ooh, yeah.
It took me 3 tries to get through Breaking Bad. The first time it was, and don't get me wrong, from the moment I started watching it, I appreciated the quality of the show, the quality of the production. The acting was top notch. The characters were believable. The problem was they were too believable. And what started happening towards the end of the first season for me is I started getting furious with the decisions that the characters in the show were making. And it was like, why would you do this? You dumb, I'm afraid I hope you can bleep some things, because I would get livid at the show. It would cause me real anxiety to watch this show. So I gave up after the first season. I didn't even think I was ever going to look at it again. Then, of course, people keep talking, and they keep talking about things that are spoiling things. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to know that. I don't care about the show. And I'm like, well, if I cared about it, then, or if I didn't care about it, why would I care about what they're saying? So a couple years later, I gave it another try. I got to the end of the 3rd season. And the thing was nothing had changed for me, except I was like, all right, fine. I know you're going to do this stupid thing here. And it just kept getting worse. Like, the one scene with the ATM, that was the scene that ended it for me the second time. I could not do this. This is horrible. And then my older daughter, ended up loving the show, and she couldn't stop talking about it. I'm like, you're the most anxious person I know. How are you watching this? She's like, I know, but I can't not know what's going to happen next. Like, oh my God. So finally I went through all of it, and I'm satisfied that I did. It was definitely worth watching. One of the best shows on cable television ever. But the funny thing is that reason that it stopped me the first time never went away. I just got a little desensitized to it. But that show made me so mad. Oh, that's horrible.
Did you ever watch 24?
No, I tried. I just never enjoyed that one.
See, I loved 24, and I probably watched the first 5 seasons of that, and then something happened, and I didn't watch like the last season, and then they kind of brought it back for, I don't know, some little mini-series. But I remember recommending it to a lot of people. And Steve Madura watched 24 with his wife, Carrie, and I think they watched maybe a few seasons, but he kept saying to me, he's like, man, it's like, Carrie really, she doesn't like this show. I was like, really? And he says, she gets all anxious, and like, the drama and the tension it builds, and like every episode ends on some sort of like a cliffhanger, or every few episodes, something big happens, and then they feel like they got to watch one more. He said, we're staying up late at night. We're not getting enough sleep. She's feeling sick to her stomach. She's got all this anxiety. And then she got pregnant, and they were still trying to watch it. And she's like, nope, I'm done. She just couldn't do it anymore. And it's like they stopped watching. And for me, I was like, really? Because I didn't have that experience. But hearing you talk about your anxiety with trying to get through Breaking Bad and it taking 3 attempts to get all the way through it, like, that's a real thing for people. Yeah. And if you've got certain shows that kind of build on that, I can understand that. I can understand how you could have a hard time with that.
I needed Valium to watch that show. They made me so mad. Oh, so mad.
I've got a video game. I mean, I've played a bunch of video games where I've actually like put them down and never come back to them for different reasons. But my wife convinced me a number of years ago to pick up the game BioShock Infinite, and I bought it on the PS3.
Oh, that's funny because I have started that and never went back.
So I had this experience where she listened to the Nerdist podcast at the time pretty regularly, and Chris Hardwick had Ken Levine on, who was the creative director of the game, and she thought this game sounded great, really fantastic, just based on listening to it on a podcast. And so she came home and said, "We got to go get this thing." And I said, "Sure." We went out and we bought it at a Gray Whale, came home, and I think I probably played maybe an hour and a half of it, maybe 2 hours of it, and I just wasn't feeling it. And so I put it down. And 18 months went by, and then I started looking through some video games. I went, yeah, maybe I'll try this again. I did make the mistake of not going back and restarting it, which I should have, because it took me like a good hour or two to kind of figure out the controls and try to remember what was going on, and I had to do a little Wikipedia searching. But I ended up playing that game every night for like the next week and a half, and beating that game. And that game is so fantastic. And the ending of it, and I'm not going to spoil it because you said you haven't gone back to it, but the ending of that game was so mind-bending, and I loved it so much, and it made me think that I had to go and like watch a half-hour YouTube explanation of what was happening at the end of the game, because you also got to remember that I, kind of essentially forgot the first 2 hours of the game.
Right.
But when I went back and I watched that video, I was like, whoa. And it gave me such a deeper appreciation of what the game was and the multi-layers to the game that I love that game now. I highly recommend that game. If that game were to be remastered, I would pick it up on my PS4 in a heartbeat.
Well, they remastered BioShock 1 and 2, yeah?
They did, and I have that, and I've played through about a quarter of the first one. But I've never finished it, and I put it down for other games.
Did you ever finish the original BioShock, like before the remasters? No? That's funny, because that was actually not one of the ones I want to talk about, but BioShock 1 was actually a game that I had put down, and then it was my ex who actually was kind of interested in some of the characters because she had seen some cosplay, so I actually played it, and she was watching through some of it, and that kind of, I don't know, that perspective and her enjoyment while I was playing it helped me to get through that, and I finished BioShock 2, and then I started Infinite, and then I was not feeling anything from Infinite at all.
Definitely go back to Infinite. It is very much worth it.
And then I'm sure I'll end up going back to Last of Us at some point, too, so...
Stu. Last of Us is hands down one of the best games ever.
Funny enough, though, as far as what's memorable, there aren't any video games that I put down and then picked up later that really stand out. I mean, BioShock was there, but it wasn't like it was this major, memorable, self-revelation kind of thing.
Infinite will be on that list for you once you pick it back up and finish it.
I may do that. Like once I kind of cap out on everything that I want to do in WoW, maybe I'll do that. Because I don't want to burn myself out on WoW. There's still so much to do in Battle for Azeroth. Oh my god! But yeah, I mean, once I start getting capped on all that stuff, I would like to continue my character through the whole, this whole expansion series, and so that means I'm going to need to step back a little bit. So maybe I'll give that a shot.
Yep.
But when Blu-ray and HDVD were still kind of battling it out, we had made the decision we had watched the original series. I had always liked that. I got it on HD DVD. Whoops. And sat down and watched it with the family. And Amber actually really liked it. Like, really liked it. We started watching it even on our honeymoon. And so I was like, we both liked some of the Star Trek stuff, but we were like, hey, why don't we go through all of it, So we kind of doubled down, and we went, we got every series, every movie. Funny enough, though, Voyager, when it was actually on air, I did not enjoy like the end of season 2, I actually kind of fell out of love with Voyager. I didn't enjoy it all that much. So I had stopped it. So that was already hanging in the air. So we start watching Star Trek. First of all, after the original series comes Star Trek, the animated series.
Right.
We had started this endeavor. We had already bought all the seasons of every show before we finished original series. And so we start watching animated series, and that almost killed it right there. There's like 1.5 seasons of that. We were just a couple episodes in, and we're like, either we're going to have to change the rules here and just skip it, or we're not going to do anything. We really didn't watch any Star Trek, as gung-ho as we were, for a good 6 months, almost a year, I think.
Wow.
Finally, we're like, oh God, it's all sitting there. It's taunting us. And so we gave it another shot. We were able to get through it. And yeah, I would say it's definitely life-changing, as in don't ever watch the animated series.
Right.
It will remove hours of your life that you will never be able to get back. It is so bad. Even though it has the original characters, it's like every trope, every cliche from the original series amplified by 1,000 in cartoon format. No.
Yep.
So anyway, so we finally got through that. Then we went through Next Generation. Then we watched Deep Space Nine, which I had watched Deep Space Nine when it was on before, but for some reason I enjoyed it so much more even the second time through. And I think it was kind of more about binge watching than it was, like over 7 years and taking breaks here and there and catching up. We binged Deep Space Nine hard, and that show evolved so well. It started off kind of but I loved what they did with that. Then we got to Voyager. Voyager was difficult for me. There were some things that were just so slow, or some things that had already been done, and they were trying to fill it in as an episodic kind of thing, or as more of a series kind of thing, and less episodic. And that was, I know they had started to do that the last half of DS9, which worked well, but I didn't feel like it did well with Voyager. But we made it through that. Fortunately, by like the end of the 3rd season, it actually started to pick back up, and they started to get some really good storylines that I really liked being involved in. They had some tie-back storylines, especially the closer they got back to Earth, they ran into more species and like the Dominion and things like that. And it actually got a lot more interesting for me, and so I'm really glad that we stuck through that and went through it. And then we watched Enterprise, which was okay. I think it deserved more attention than it got. I understand why a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was an okay show. But then also we watched all the movies in between all that and anything. But yeah, anyway, so Star Trek animated series, I did finish, regrettably so. Voyager, I'm really glad that we went back to. So
Nice. Have you ever had something where you watched something or read something or played something where you really liked it the first time, but then when you went back and revisited it, you thought a lot less of it, or
everything I enjoyed as a child that I rewatched as an adult. The Transformers movie cartoon. Oh,
right.
Oh my God. I loved that so much as a kid. I tried to watch it as an adult, and I just wanted to poke my eyes out. The original Dune movie as well.
Oh yeah, that is hard to watch now.
Oh yes.
Hard to watch. I had this experience a little while ago where I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson, the author.
Okay, yeah.
The Stormlight Archive is one of near the top of my list, if not the top of my list right now for book series. He's an excellent, excellent author. But when I originally read his stuff, everyone said, you got to read these Mistborn books. You got to read these Mistborn books. They're really, really good. And I read them, and I ripped through those first 3 books so fast, and I enjoyed them. And then I read some of his other books. I read, Warbreaker that he did, which is kind of a standalone book. And then I ended up reading the Dragonsteel books. It's kind of a little more like young adult, kind of a superhero-y. And I like those. And then he came out with the Wax and Wayne books, which kind of continue in the Mistborn world, but they're like a couple hundred years later. And I really loved those. And then the Stormlight Archive series hits. And this is going to be probably his best work. It's only 3 books out of a 10-book series, and I love every book so much. So I was talking with my wife, Brita, and we were talking about the Mistborns, and she said, yeah, I I read most of the first one or finished the first one of those original 3, but I haven't gone much further. So I said, oh, well, hey, I've got them on audiobook. Let's listen to them on a car ride. And for some reason, I went back to it and I really enjoyed him the first time and I love all his stuff, but I just could not get invested in the characters anymore, and I couldn't just read it or I couldn't listen to it. Like, for some reason, it just didn't click with me. And I powered through the first book, and then I started the second book, and I got maybe 45 minutes into it, and I was like, nope, I gotta do something else. And I think for me, it was these books, he's evolved as a writer. His writing's much better and much more detailed and nuanced and just so much stronger now, in my opinion, that going back and reading this, it feels too basic, too simple, too blah.
You know, it's... Go ahead.
No, that's...
Stephen King, actually, now that I hadn't even thought about that. One is I would post maybe it was different actually reading it versus narrated, maybe. I don't know. But Stephen King actually kind of did that for me. I really enjoy Stephen King's writings. I love his tie-ins. He's got this kind of universe of his own. I love all that stuff. And I read the early books and really enjoyed them, kept reading as they went on and on and on. And they get so involved and so good. And then I did go back through because I wanted to read, there's this, when I talk about this other world, it kind of ties into the Gunslinger, the Nexus. There's like
the Dark Tower stuff.
Yeah, everything in that he's written as Stephen King has some reference to the Dark Tower, and it's either a character from those books or a situation or a dream or something that makes this meta universe that contains all these things. And there's this huge infographic about it. And I wanted to read all the books from the perspective of the Dark Tower. And so I started with the early stuff and it's exactly, it falls kind of flat. It's really, he's grown so much as a writer that now it's obvious to see the depth that he didn't have back then.
Right.
And I didn't really enjoy him so much after all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting perspective.
I tried reading the, I think the Gunslinger, right? It's the first one in the Dark Tower series.
Yes.
I tried reading that, and I got, I don't know, maybe an hour into that book, hour and a half into that book, and I just felt myself that I was really, really bored. And I know everyone says it's a great series. You got to, give it some time, and then it'll hook you, and but
the Gunslinger was never intended to be what it became. It was really just, it started out as a short story, I believe, or maybe it was in its current entity and it just kind of kept getting revised until he published it as the Gunslinger. But it was never meant to be this whole launch into this Dark Tower series and this mythos. It was originally standalone, and really what it serves to now is an introduction to the Gunslinger and the world that he lives in. After the Gunslinger, like from the drawing of the 3 onward, it really does take on a life of its own. You do need to read the Gunslinger if you really want to understand it and get into it. It really does a good setup, but from the perspective of a setup, it's okay. But from a really good gripping book, no, absolutely not. But the drawing of the 3 just really starts taking off. And then if you're deep into his stuff and you read other things and it's kind of like it's like the inside joke of any book, and you read it and you hear other people talk about a book or something like, yeah, I like this book for this and this. And then you're reading it. And then on page 435, this character Jake shows up that's just, playing with a neighborhood kid. And he gives just enough of a hint to let you know that, yes, that's Jake. And it just kind of pulls on you. It's an amazing effect. I don't know.
See, if you like that kind of stuff, that's why I think people need to read Brandon Sanderson, because all his books in this Cosmere, this shared universe, all tied together. So like in the Stormlight Archives, there's characters that I've met in the Mistborn books, and there's characters that have come from the Warbreaker book and the Elantris book. And so like all of a sudden I'm reading this, I'm like, hey, this character sounds an awfully lot like this other character. And then you find out, oh, yes, that actually is that other character. and they're kind of tied in, and you don't understand how it all works yet, because he's not trying to make it look like, hey, this is directly connected to this, but he's just kind of starting to pull on these little strings that are pulling things in closer and closer and letting you kind of fill in some of the gaps a little bit. And as the story evolves more, we get a little more detail, and it's this amazing thing where I only read the book Warbreaker because someone said, hey, there's a main character in Warbreaker that shows up in the second book of Stormlight Archive. And I was like, ooh, now I'm interested, now I'm intrigued, and that's why I went and read that.
Interesting.
So I highly recommend the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. But like I said, going back to Mistborn, it just didn't hit me. And so I was curious, yeah. So you said the stuff, the Stephen King stuff, yeah, his early works.
Yeah, going back into that, I gave up on that endeavor because I really just didn't want to sit through reading some of those early things again. Carrie and The Stand is really good. I did read The Stand over again. The Stand, I think it still suffers from some of his early writing, but it's still such a fascinating story that I enjoyed that. But like Carrie and Christine and just like his early anthologies as well, just kind of like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm always kind of curious about this idea because, like I said, in the last few years, I've been trying to go back and trying to shake up some of my preconceived notions or my thought processes on certain things. Like I said, pickles, movies, some TV, some books, some video games. And so I'm always curious as to, what other people are kind of, what they didn't pick up or what put down and why it didn't grab them, but it grabbed them later. And so Super Friends, I want to know from you, what is something that you tried once, whether it's a video game, TV show, movie, book, whatever it is, that it didn't hit you right the first time and you didn't care for it, but then you ended up going back to it and you ended up loving it or really appreciating it for something, for a different reason. And let us know next week and we will read your answers, and you can get us at all the usual places, which is our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com, or on Facebook, we're facebook.com/fortofnerd, on Twitter @fortofnerd, or you can leave us a voicemail message, which is a guaranteed way to get on the show, which is 801-477-7687. And we will we'll read those next week. And I'm curious, Stu. I'm curious to hear what our super friends have to say.
Yeah, I wonder how many are going to tell me that I'm an idiot for not having finished BioShock Infinite as well. Because I mean, and the funny thing is you're not the only person I've heard that had to go back to it a second time, but it was so worth it that you need to finish it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, BioShock Infinite and Last of Us, man. Last of Us, get back to that.
I've tried that twice, and I just...
how far have you got into it?
Like maybe an hour each time. There's like nothing that... I don't feel anything that first hour that makes me even want to try to keep playing. I'm so bored.
It's... Okay, so I'll say this. It's an emotional journey, that game, but it's slow.
I have no soul, so...
Well, there you go. But it builds... No, but between the two characters, it kind of builds the relationships kind of a little slow. It's kind of a slow burn. But then you get to a point and you realize like you're invested in these characters and you're invested in their relationship between the two. The game, for me, the gameplay is very tight. It's on point. It's great. But it's the character development and the storytelling, but you don't get that all right up front. I mean, they do a good job at the very beginning with trying to, draw you into this world, but then it does take a little bit to kind of get going. Well, man, that first 15 minutes of that game.
There is a point, I have a mental pin in The Last of Us that it's definitely going to get played at some point. I'm not ready. There's still other stuff. I know there'll always be other stuff. I do want to revisit. I'll probably do it just before Last of Us 2 comes out or something. We'll see.
Yeah, anyway. Well, super friends, thank you for joining us again this week. Stu, once again, always a pleasure and a lot of fun.
Always, man. Always.
And,
love it.
Super friends, wherever you may be out there, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, may the Force be with you. Always.